Hi, I'm Bob with CNC Molds and Stuff. This is a simple lead casting video for making a little butterfly jig or straight spoon or whatever you want to call it with a wire through insert. And I'm going to show you what the finished product is, what the mold looks like. This is a custom mold made for a customer, but it's shown with permission. Wouldn't show your mold off to the general public without your permission. And how I make the wireforms and what I did in order to be able to make the wireforms so that they're pretty much an exact fit every time, or that's the theory anyway. Anyway, let's take a look at it all. Here's the mold. It's pretty straightforward. This particular mold I found to be a little bit difficult to cast. So I went with a graphite spray for a mold release, and actually the graphite spray helped it fill better. And these are the wireforms that fit right in there. Each wire mold for each different size. I already made up some ahead of time. This mold I think usually pours best when it's hot, but we're going to try it cold. And see what happens. Alright, here we go. Now the moment of truth. Will this mold pour cold? Now there's a couple little things I did. I blade vented the cavities and so on, and that helped quite a lot. Oh, looks like I got a little over pour here. But one of the things that I did was I designed it with a narrow entry from the gate, or from the sprue, into the cavity, so that when you break it off, it's virtually indistinguishable. Now, if you were making these for production, you might want to clip those off with nippers and file them, of course wearing dust mask and using a safe environment so that you're not breathing lead dust. But if you just wanted to take these out, paint them up real quick and dirty and fish with them, these take very little cleanup with this particular gate design. You can see a little bit of a rough spot there where the gate was. In other words, very little cleanup. I'm kind of proud of that. Most of them don't come out. Most molds don't work quite that good, but that one worked pretty good. I was pretty confident on what I was going to get because I've already tested this mold and run a few of them out before I send it off to the customer. Every mold that I make for a customer, unless it's a design I've made 50 times before for the same customer, I test before it goes out. And here's some more of the pre-made wireforms. Let's take a look at how I make the wireforms next. Alright guys, you see this little blue spool of El Cheapo stainless steel tie wire? I think I got that for $5 at Harbor Freight. It's stainless steel tie wire, and it's 0.041 inches in diameter, at least initially. This is what I found works. Get a nice chunk of it out to work with. Notice how it's all curly and nasty. It'd be kind of impossible to work with or to straighten out by hand. What I do is I grab the end of it with a pair of vice grips. This is an old pair, still says made in USA. And I stretch the wire out and I pull on it. And I don't pull on it just until it's straight, because you really can't do that. I pull on it until I feel it stretch just a little bit. Yes, I realize that does make the wire a tiny bit thinner, but it's not enough to flash. You've already seen the baits come out of the mold. As you can see, the wire's now nice and straight and easy to work with. What you see here are the three tools that I use for forming the wireforms for that mold that you just watched me cast. I take a piece of that pre-straightened wire that I showed you how to straighten, and I decide which size wire form I'm going to make. You want to leave it long enough to work with. Trust me, the time saved by giving yourself plenty of working room is far outweighs any loss of materials. Now what I found works fairly good is to just hold the wire form down and bend it around the post. Don't try and form it tight to the post just yet. And then go to the other end while holding it down and form it tightly around the post. Trust me, it springs back. Right? Then you squeeze one end down on the post and you squeeze it behind the post. And that makes it draw tight. Then you do the same thing at the other end. You squeeze it behind the post and it draws tight. Now if you need to tweak it a little bit to make sure that it fits in your mold when you're working on it, now's the best time to do it because the wire is under the most control that it has been since probably it was made. Alright, then I just grab a fingernail underneath the end and I clip off those little tags. You always want to wear safety glasses when you do this because those little tags can go flying with enough force to injure an eyeball. And then the same thing on the other end. And I have a wire form that's perfect for the large cavity on that mold that I showed you earlier. Works the same way on one of the smaller ones. Say we want to do a wire form for the small cavity. Pick a length, cut it off, form it around the posts, pull it tight while you form it around the other post, squeeze it on the post, squeeze it behind the post, squeeze it on the post, squeeze it behind the post. That pulls it tight to the right length. Now on the small one, I know for a fact that it doesn't fit well unless those two wire ends are right next to each other. So I take that off, and now I can clip off my extra wire. Now if I was going to make a bunch of these, I'd probably cut a whole bunch of wire segments for each size to length before I started forming them so that I could just pick it up, form it, pick it up, form it, and so on all the way down the line. There we have a wire form that fits in the small cavity of that mold. That's basically it. This wire forming tool that's made specifically for that mold is not something that's included with a custom mold unless you specifically ask for it. Obviously it takes some machining. This one I machined out of a piece of scrap, another mold that had a failed cut. But it obviously takes some more machining, and some planning. But if you have a wire-through custom mold made, you should probably ask your mold maker, whoever it is, if they'll make you a wire form like this also at the same time and how much extra that'll cost. I'm guessing the average mold maker is probably going to charge $100 to make a little wire form tool like this in aluminum, which will last for a while but not forever. And maybe a couple hundred to make one in steel, just because steel is slower to cut and time on the machine is money. That's about it. Should be no big deal. Obviously, that ballpark price is only good today for an estimate in 2015. In 2035, it'll probably be $1 million or whatever we're using for currency then. Anyway, I hope that helped somebody. This is one of the CAM programs that I use to take geometry and convert it into code that will cut a mold or some other project. What we're doing here is opening up the original file that we generated the project from. And what we see here is some of the vents. Let's get some other stuff up, more germane to cutting the wireform tool that you saw. Basically, let's show the original slots and geometry for cutting out where the wires go in the mold. And as you can see, we've got something that looks tremendously different from what we wound up with the wire form. Now we're going to show where we copied that geometry and did a little bit of work with it in order to get what we wanted. Alright, if you look up here, there's the curves that are the curved part of where the wire comes out of the mold cavity. And then down on the bottom of it, we made the little teardrop to make it nice to shape the wire around inside the cavity so that the wire is near the middle instead of off to one side where it can cause a problem. Obviously, because I already have the geometry used to cut the mold, I'd be the guy that would be the best one to cut a wireform tool for this. The little blue lines you see here are a simulation of the tool paths where material is removed to leave just the posts that we use to form the wire around. The little green lines around the posts themselves is where it takes a cleanup pass to make them exactly the right shape. That's pretty much it. And that's the way that I set up and programmed the machine to do the job. If you have a custom wire through mold made, you should probably have whoever made the mold for you make a form tool like this, unless you've got a better way to do it.